Last night, I hurried in my van looking for a specific case from a few years ago. Among all the boxes I found the folder I had searched so much for. Case 64224. I had memorized the number and face of it, but let me give you a little context first. Before residing in my current city, which I will not reveal for privacy, I lived in Mexico City. During that time I did my medical residency at one of the most famous mental hospitals in the city, the Fray Bernardino Álvarez Psychiatric Hospital. Many have the wrong idea of what a mental hospital is because of movies and books that only paint people as a group living under animal instincts. The reality is very different. People who are hospitalized are usually completely functional, even without medication. However, there are also people who are so sick they cannot be controlled. Even under the effects of antipsychotics or neuroleptics, we can only sedate them and make them sleep. Their minds are completely destroyed and there is really no solution. This is case 64224, and the question I will answer is, have you ever doubted your own mind so much that you thought you might end up hospitalized? Many people confuse psychology with psychiatry. A psychologist treats mental disorders that can derive from trauma or many other factors. They study for years to understand and think about people. Psychiatrists, on the other hand, treat mental illnesses. We first study medical school and then specialize in psychiatry. Mental illnesses are not always derived from trauma or an event. Many times they just appear, by inheritance or just by chance. The last time I saw someone whom I will call Luciana, I remember her almost like a photograph. I was a psychiatry resident in my last year. I was the first to be left alone with a patient without an inscribed doctor supervising me because it was November 20th, a holiday here. Luciana was almost 30 years old, hospitalized in the hospital, and during that time she had not said a single word. The doctors sometimes joked about it. Some genuinely thought she was mute. That afternoon I entered her room where she was lying down. She had her hands crossed over her chest and her eyes fixed toward the ceiling. According to her file, which I had read several days before, that was what she normally did all day. The same file which I now have in my house illegally. For some reason I felt completely intrigued by this case. I had read her full file on several occasions, the notes from the other psychiatrists. Her story was almost empty. There was no really relevant data. But even so, I needed to know more every day. She had been hospitalized in December 1984 by people who did not identify themselves. The hospital at that time had decided to receive her when they saw her in a very bad state. Luciana was 60 years old at that time. I think she must be in her 70s or born around then. Despite that, she had a quiet appearance. She didn't live with anyone, she didn't talk, but she was functional. She took her medication as told, she bathed, she followed the rules. But there was something strange about her, that fixed, sad look that always came out of her eye sockets. That afternoon, lying on the bed in her room, she looked toward the ceiling and I sat next to her. There was only a chair and a small table, where sometimes they put her food when she could not go to the dining room. I began to talk to her as other doctors and nurses used to do. "Hello," I said without waiting for an answer in return. "How are you today? Is there anything I can help you with?" Some doctors think treating sick people as completely normal people helps them recover a little. Maybe that was what I was thinking at the time. I had heard that for almost 30 years, Luciana had never received a single visit from outsiders. That seemed sad to me because I couldn't imagine how she felt. There was a rule in the hospital that sessions should always be recorded, due to several legal issues with patients' families. So I took my little voice recorder. Using a cell phone did not seem useful to me at that time. In addition, the recorder gave us an air of retro professionalism that some psychiatrists like. I made sure the recording button was pressed and placed it on the small table. "Luciana, I would like to ask you about you," I continued. "I know many people have talked to you, but I would like to know your story firsthand. not what I read on the papers. Luciana looked at the ceiling. It seemed to me she blinked less than a person normally does. Those were the little details I could not ignore. According to your file, you were a resident of Tlalnepantla, but I don't know anything else. Do you have family, children, a husband, siblings? I'll tell you a little about me. I tried to use all the methods that had been used before. I have my parents, a little brother whom I adore and can't stand at the same time. He makes me laugh a lot. You know something else? I like this place because I like to help people. Maybe if you talk to me I could help you a little too. It was useless, like every day. I tried to emulate what the doctors who had come in before me did. I guessed that, like them, everything was in vain. Or at least, that's what I thought when my surprise came along with a whisper. I heard a faint word break the silence. They burned. Again silence, but this time my ears were more attentive. I could hear people talking outside the room. Sorry? Did she say something? I asked. She kept looking at the ceiling. But this time I was sure I heard her speak. They burned. They all burned, she told me, now. I was sure I had heard her, and I didn't know whether to run to find someone because I hadn't expected to hear a word from her. And I had achieved what no one in 30 years had achieved. Make her talk. Thousands of things went through my head. I hadn't expected this. Maybe I had already had female visitors before. I didn't care. All I wanted was to know more. Who burned? I asked again. Mrs. Luciana, can you tell me what happened? All of them, she said. Her voice was so weak, almost a whisper. I had to get closer and concentrate to hear what she was saying. Here they are, she said, and I'm sure I heard it clearly. That was the last thing I heard from her. After that, her usual silence returned, and my questions simply bounced off the walls of the small room. I exhaled a strong sigh after several minutes of failed attempts. I looked at her, lying down with her gaze fixed on the ceiling. As per instinct, I looked up, to see what she was looking at. Serious error. Maybe my eyes deceived me for a few seconds, I don't know, but I'm sure of what I saw. The roof was completely on fire. I saw carbonized people as if they were lying on the roof with reverse gravity. It seemed I could see how some of them twisted. I didn't have time to process it. I just know that I saw big bodies and small bodies. They moved their little hands and feet, like a baby twisting in its cradle, but black, ashy, carbonized. I was so stunned that I got up and threw the little table where I had placed the recorder. After that sudden movement I turned to look at the ceiling again. Above, there was the same opaque white color that I had always seen. I saw the vision for a few seconds, closed my eyes and opened them again, waiting to see that reddish color with flames and the calcined bodies twisting. But it wasn't like that. That vision or hallucination never appeared again. I was surprised when someone opened the door. It was a nurse, who asked if everything was fine because she had heard the noise of the table when it fell. I confirmed as best I could that everything was fine, although I feel she did not fully believe me. I guess it was because of my expression. Even so, I picked the recorder up off the floor and left the room. I didn't even say goodbye to Luciana. My heart felt as agitated as a drum and I wasn't sure I could speak. During that whole afternoon and night I could not stop thinking about it. I convinced myself the hallucination had been instilled by Luciana's words, they burned. And her compulsion to look toward the ceiling. My mind had been playing tricks on me. It also had to be fatigue. As residents, we have 36-hour shifts every 4 days, and when I entered that afternoon I already had more than 30 hours of accumulated work with only a few minutes of sleep. Maybe I had slept a few minutes, I thought, among many other things that passed through my head. I was extremely restless. I didn't know if I could tell the doctors about it. I had to report the conversation to add it to the file, but I didn't know how to explain what happened afterward. If you read my previous notes, you know I like to investigate the things my patients tell me, to look for sources or verify stories. That habit started with an anecdote. I had nothing to look for with her because I had taken her file to my house. I had nothing more than her full name and some data that were really irrelevant, data that yielded no results when I searched online. You must remember this happened approximately 10 years ago. I wasn't an expert on the internet then. Among her documents was her permanent electoral credential, the document used before the creation of the Electoral Institute, which dated back to the 90s. I started to compulsively investigate each datum. I didn't know why or what I hoped to find. However, I did it. On the credential I read San Juan the 10th, Guatepec. When I searched the internet, my heart filled with dread when I read one of the pages that appeared. It was a newspaper note about a strong accident that occurred almost 30 years earlier. I read the headline, "Hell on Earth, the explosion in San Juan ex-Guatepec in 1984. Suddenly a voice seemed to appear in my head. I did not know if it was my subconscious or something really audible. Everyone burned. I turned my head because I felt someone had spoken behind my back, but it was only the darkness in my room. I spent that night reading reports about the explosion. More than 600 people lost their lives, among them many children. If I wasn't hallucinating and what I had seen was real, maybe the people on the roof were Luciana's family. Perhaps her husband, her children. Maybe she had shared her visions with me and what she saw on the roof was what she saw every day, the reason for her state. I remembered the recording. I quickly got out of my chair to find it and played it while I read more reports. I rewound a little, trying to calculate where the part 1 wanted to hear was. "Do you have family, children, husband or brother?" I asked on the tape. I went a little forward and leaned in. A few seconds of silence passed that then broke with my own voice. I rewound the tape. I tried again, but again it was only my voice that I heard. I let the tape advance, waiting for the other words she had told me. "Who burned?" I asked into the recorder. Again I heard myself, and again there was only silence. I was very confused. I knew Luciana's voice had been so audible that I should have recorded it, but I couldn't hear anything, even at full volume. I came back again and covered my ear to concentrate. "Who burned?" Silence. I continued with my eyes closed and completely focused on the sound. Then a horribly loud scream came out of the recorder that made me fall off my chair in fright. That scream was the word, "Mom." The recorder fell to the ground again from the impact. I breathed so wildly that I felt like I would faint. But it didn't stop. A shivering scream was heard on the recorder. The cry of a child. I had to cover my ears so I wouldn't hear any more because I was really terrified. When I covered them I could only hear my own crying. After a few seconds I uncovered them, still terrified. My eyes, so wet with tears, streamed down my cheeks. While I was looking at the recorder on the floor, afraid to hear anything else, it was simply off. I picked it up, took out the tape, put it on the floor and crushed it with my shoe with all my strength until I broke it. My hands trembled. My heart felt like it would come out of my chest. I approached the computer to erase any trace of what I had been looking for because I no longer wanted to know anything else about that case. However, before closing the page I noticed something. The fire had occurred between November 19th and 20, 1984. That day was her birthday. The next day I decided to make a copy of the file and keep the original. I thought that in the future I would return to investigate and finish what I could not that night, but it has been here for more than 10 years, and I have not had the courage to return to it. Sometimes, when I am lying down looking at the ceiling, I think of that image. I think that maybe she has seen that for more than 40 years. I really couldn't imagine how horrible that must be. I couldn't even continue watching it after that. Today I barely have the courage to tell that story.